Hi, this is more important than goal setting or than forming habits because the time you spend in negative patterns is much longer than the ones that you spend in a habit that is positively formed. Why? Because a negative pattern, this negative sort of loop, has had the chance to get reinforced in your brain over and over. There are certain brain structures, brain pathways, right? Which are created when you do a habit or when you do a positive thing. And the same goes when you do a negative one. And you want to be able to realize when you are into a destructive pattern or into a destructive phase, because otherwise you will just strengthen the neural connections. And you can go into the philosophical side of the debate, and that tells you that, hey, you know what, if and we're talking about free will here, right? Decision making, beliefs, and so on. So you can say, I'm free to do whatever I want, I'm a libertarian, and that's fine. Then it means that you can change. Okay, so you should break those patterns. If you are a determinist, then it means that you believe that everything is predestined. But it also can say that, hey, you know what, this hasn't been useful for me, and I have decided, because of the causality principle and the past, through the ways that I used to behave and through the things that have happened to me so far, I have decided right now to change. So, and then you have the compatibilist view, which is between those, and it basically states, okay, the world is deterministic in nature, but you do have this inner drive, and when you have this inner drive, it means that you have some sort of free will. Anyway, you can go and see Churchland for a good example of a compatibilist view, but that that's to say, no matter from which perspective you come in the philosophical debate or from which area you believe in, you end up in the same space of understanding that if something is negatively affecting you, you can change it, and you have to change it. Why? It's either because you have the free will to change it, or it's either because you have decided, or something has decided for you, or it has been decided by nature since the beginning of time for you to change in this very point of time. So breaking a negative pattern, a negative habit, is consistent with any way of thinking. So what does it mean? What does a negative pattern mean? I will share with you a negative one that I had, and this has been perpetuated since 2020. After all of my previous relationships that obviously failed, well, some very strange and interesting thing followed. The person that I was dating, they started immediately dating somebody else and me in the same time. I injured myself, and this had no coincidence, right? I don't believe in the idea that, oh, because you're negatively charged or in a negative situation, I don't think that it affects you in any way. I have behaved by Sapolsky, and he will probably agree with me that this is just nonsense. But it just happened, right? The correlation is there, but it's no causation. So what happened for me? Instead of taking the time to heal myself, taking the time to feel the feelings, I would have gone into trying to deflect those feelings. And here is where the key to negative patterns lie: in feeling the negative parts. We have become so accustomed to the dopamine rushes. We have had a baseline level to which we were born with, a level which in our brain was at equilibrium, so to speak, when we were kids, and something happened along the way. Internet became, social media came, the TV, all of the other things that are boosting our dopamine. They offer us dopamine spikes. You tend to get that from food as well, right? So food is also a major factor. You can get dopamine from sweets, you can get dopamine from anything that's pleasurable, and you get a spike. And humans were used to having those kind of spikes in the past as well, right? A reason why we're having sex is dopamine, right? I mean, sex is really pleasurable, otherwise why would you bother? But see, you had those natural level of spikes. The problem is that the frequency of them increased up to that crazy level until right now. First of all, it doesn't have the time to return to the baseline, but that's not the issue because dopamine acts very fast. The real issue is that the baseline has been modified, and you get to what it's called a change in the baseline. There are two phases of dopamine, and the basal phase is just having its level increased. So you will need more to activate the dopamine effects in your brain, right? So you can think of this if you are overly stimulated in a day, and at the end of the day something really nice happens. You tend to perceive it as, hey, okay, that's a nice thing, right? Let's say the bus arrives in the station when you're there, but you had this really cool day, everybody was very nice to you, your crush spoke to you, you received some money from a friend just for doing nothing. Anyway, you had a day full of dopamine hits. You're gonna be like, oh, okay, this was a good day, this was nice. But when you're having a bad day, if the bus comes, you're gonna be like, oh, that's actually very, very nice. It's a larger chunk of dopamine in relationship to what has happened in the rest of the day. So what you need to understand about dopamine is that it's not the quantity of it, it's the relationship of it, of the spike with regard to your basal levels. So when you start to see a negative pattern, what's happening? When that pattern was formed, you had a trigger which led to an action, to a negative pattern, right? For me, that trigger in that case was, okay, I would get injured and I would get hurt emotionally. So my action was to run away from the feelings. This is a negative pattern which I needed to interrupt, okay? So the best interrupt is to realize your feelings there and to be present with it. Most people struggle with grief, most people struggle with the end of the relationship because they don't take the time to heal, they don't take the time to understand their feelings. But when you do, when you are in the middle of that cycle and you catch yourself doing it, you are allowing yourself the time to heal. And maybe this is not the best example of interrupting a negative cycle, a negative pattern, but this is a very, very subtle one because, see, I haven't observed it in the first few times when it happened, like first 2 times when it happened, but then I was like, okay, this is something that's happened at spaced intervals but with regularity. So when I'm hurt both in the physical sense and in the emotional sense, I tend to escape those feelings and get into different kinds of ways of not thinking of the damage. Like one time I had a relationship and I had a broken foot. At the same time, I ended up going to a party where I danced and I absolutely obliterated my recovery. Then I had a surgery, right? I wasn't allowed to lift heavy things. 2 days after, I was lifting heavy boxes and 20 kilos, moving from the apartment that I was living in with that person at the time. So what I'm trying to say is that's clearly a pattern that I saw in your life, in your daily existence. You do have more negative patterns that are less destructive than this one, but for example, somebody at work put you under pressure. Then you have a pattern to dissociate until the work ends, and then to drink something right at the end of your day, right? It's a very common pattern. You can see it a lot in different cultures. The culture of a pint at 5 p.m. If sounds familiar, that's where it comes from. It comes from the need to escape the reality. It doesn't come from the idea of, oh, okay, let's go out and enjoy nature and have a nice beer. No. Most of the times it comes from the idea of, man, I dreaded that day, I'm happy it's over, I need something to numb the feeling that I'm not doing what I'm supposed to be doing. So, and obviously this is an overt generalization, right? It's not right, but you understand my point. There are so many negative patterns in this life, in this universe, and if you're catching the biggest ones, the ones that lead to Addiction. This is a very common one. The ones that lead to rejection of feelings, rejection of people, spending money, spending habits. Very interesting to see your negative triggers. Some people get upset and spend, or some people get upset and did. If you can identify all those negative patterns in you, and if you can break them, that's more valuable than any good habit that you can form. I have formed one habit in the past year. That habit was going to gym 4 times per week. Great habit, loved it. You know what's a better habit than that I could have had, but I still don't have it? When I'm in a stressed state, I tend to overindulge in sweets or to eat. And that means that the amount of improvement that I could have seen by having that habit has been shunted heavily through the use of food. Because, as you know, if you want to obtain some results in your body, you need to have the food, the sleep in place, the exercise, of course, and sometimes the proper supplementation, right? You can see some results without it, but I'm not here to be a fitness guru. I'm not knowledgeable enough in that area, so I will let somebody else talk. But you definitely need food and sleep, right? Because during sleep your muscles recover, and because of the food your muscles have the nutrients to develop. Okay, it's easy, it's biology. So the idea is that if you are sabotaging one of those things due to a negative pattern, no matter how good the habit is, you're not gonna get far. As the offspring was saying, you're not gonna go far, kid, because it's gonna bring you down, and you're gonna stop the positive habit. That's the thing. You're gonna see less and less results, or you're gonna see no results, or you're gonna see results that you're not happy with, and you're gonna think, I'm doing the right thing, I'm doing the proper thing, what everybody told me that I should do, and I'm still failing to see what I want, what I desire. Money-wise, same goes. Maybe you increase your income, but guess what? Due to some negative associations and negative loops that you have formed, which says that when you're stressed, I need to buy clothes. When I'm out, I need to spend or something, or I need to buy whatever to feel good. Those are things that allow you to also have an inflation in your spending, not only in your income. So this is what typically happens in the life of every youngster, more or less. You tend to get a raise, but your quality of life doesn't improve because you do have those negative cycles that you didn't break in the past. And I think we all do. I come from a culture that has been living generational traumas from a post-communist era. We're a very interesting culture to study from a psychological point of view, but my desire is not to do that, or to find excuses for how we are. It's just to say that I understand how negative cycles can be, and especially around money, around property, around anything that was scarce in the past. We have those things that were delivered to us unknowingly by our parents, especially the generation that's 30, 40, even the kids that are 20, they still have this scarcity and the belief that maybe we need to be wary of things. We cannot get what we want. Life is hard, life is difficult. And okay, those are valid beliefs. I don't know, that they can be in different times and in different spaces, but guess what? It doesn't mean that you shouldn't break the negative patterns that might help you lead in that direction, right? So forming a habit, great. Get how many habits you want to form. Do the 30-day challenges, do whatever. I support you. But before that, stop the rubbish ones. Those are much more harmful for you in the long term than the good ones. And with that in mind, I hope that this has proven useful for you. I'm hoping that you found solace in this. I'm trying to find a balance between being kind and being authoritative, for you to see that I do care about your well-being, but I also do not want to give you the idea that it's alright to do the things that have hurt you in the past, because in the end it's all about living a better life. as again, maybe I had a book of Jung. I think it's on my sofa. But I was reading it. It's a memoir, a biography, and the idea is, I understand what Jung was thinking. I understand what he was referring to, or okay, better said, if you can go back to the idea of what he was thinking, you go back to Nagel's "What's Like to Be a Bat." You definitely don't know what Jung was thinking, but you can understand what he was thinking about. Okay, so he was thinking about certain things that he expressed in his works, but you never know his opinion about his life. You never understand how that life was perceived by you. You get the feeling that he was quite content with what he had, but there are many other authors, many other areas in which, okay, I have next to me like a huge stack of books. You don't say it, but yeah, that's a huge stack of books, right? I learned from those people. I don't know how their lives were, so I can get the habits from them. I can get the habits of amazing people in the past, and maybe I can replicate their success. But is that a good life for them? You saw Jokic after he won the ring, right? What he said, he just wanted to go back to his family, because that's, for him, basketball was just a job. For other people, basketball is what they breathe. And for Kobe, for example, basketball was everything. Of course, he loved his family a lot, but basketball was the deal. So for each individual, their experience is different, and you can never assume how the life of a person was for him or her. So habits can point you in the right direction. They can be good, but breaking your own negative patterns, the destructive things in your life, that brings you way more value, and nobody's talking about that. So I'm hoping you'll find ways to do that. You can talk to a specialist, you can find research things on the internet, or awareness is the first step, I think. So at least if this creates awareness, I'm gonna be happy. Until next time, take care and goodbye.